Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Trumpet's Call. I'm Maria. I pray that you're blessed today, that you're holding on to faith and holding on to hope. Thank you for joining me once again on the channel. Today's Torah tidbit is just a little lesson on Pesach, or Passover. It's coming up soon, so I thought I'd do a little lesson on it. So I pray that you get something out of this little lesson on Passover. So we celebrate Passover in the springtime. It occurs on the first month of the Hebrew calendar, our calendar. It happens at the head of the year, at the beginning of our year, which is springtime, not January. So it happens sometime in March or April. And according to the calendar of the Havad.org, the dates are April 15th to April 23rd, and that's Pesach through FirstFruits. And then according to the Hebrew website, one of the Hebrew websites that I found on YouTube, we have the dates of April 30th through May 8th. So you'd have to choose which one of these dates that you are going to observe Passover. I certainly recommend observing it because it's a reminder for us, especially now in the time of our captivity. It's a reminder that soon we will be going home, because the events that happened during the time of the first Passover event, the first major Passover event in the scriptures, is going to mimic our experience of leaving Babylon. So it would do well for us to rehearse our gathering. And that's what this is, Passover. It's a rehearsal for a gathering and leaving. And so let's rehearse together as we prepare to leave this place. We're going to read about Passover, and we're going to go right to the scriptures and read about the first Passover after leaving the land of Egypt. And this occurs in Exodus chapter 12. And then we're going to read about that. And then we're going to discuss a little bit about how this Passover can then be applied to our lives in terms of our relationship to Mashiach and being people of faith in the new covenant. So let's get started reading in Exodus chapter 12. Now Yahuwah spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, "This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak to all the congregation of Yasharal, saying, On the 10th of this month every man shall take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the persons, according to each man's need. You shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it from sheep or from the goats. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Yasharal shall kill it at twilight. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they eat it. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread, with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in fire, with heads, with its legs and its entrails. You shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And thus ye shall eat it, with a belt on your waist, and sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. You shall eat it in haste. It is Yahuwah's Passover." Okay, we're going to pause right there for a second. So as we examine these scriptures, we see that in order to keep the Passover, that we are taking a lamb for a household. So the Father wants nothing to be wasted. He wants none of his grace that is coming to us in the form of this lamb to be wasted. And so if the lamb is too much for one household, he's saying join in with your neighbors and kill a lamb, and you guys share it as 2 households, so that nothing goes to waste, because the Father would never want any of his son's grace to go to waste, any of his grace to go to waste. So the male has to be without blemish. It has to be spot free, perfect, a male of the first year. A male of the first year indicates to me here that it's a firstborn. a male of the first year. It's a young male. It's a young male of the first year. And you should take it from the sheep or the goat. So it could be a sheep or a goat that you use to do the Passover. And you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. So in this instance, the father is asking the children of Yasharal to take the sheep or goat and put it aside. Put it aside from the other sheep and goat and feed the sheep, feed the goat, care for it, tend to it, almost treat it as if it's a part of your family before you kill it. Have some sort of affinity and affection toward it before you end up killing it on the 14th day. And so that the death of this animal means something to you, so that you can feel something when this animal dies and you take the blood of this animal and place on the doorpost of your house. And so we should feel something when we think about what Messiah did for us and how he hung on that tree for us. We should feel something, that this is the Most High's Passover, and that we should feel that it was done for us in love and as a true sacrifice. It says, the whole assembly of the congregation shall kill it at twilight. So at twilight, everyone comes together and they kill their respective lambs. And then they take the blood, or some of the blood, and they put it on the doorposts, the two doorposts that run vertically, and then the lintel that runs horizontally. And they place it on the doorposts of their house. They take the flesh of the lamb, roast it in fire, and they eat it with unleavened bread, meaning bread without yeast, made without yeast, and then bitter herbs. So this is how we keep the Passover. For Tete, you take lamb, roasted or cooked with fire, bitter herbs, and then unleavened bread, and you eat it in haste. You don't eat it as if you're sitting around enjoying an evening meal, or even if you are, you do it with a sense of feeling a sense of urgency, like I'm eating this because I'm about to go somewhere. And this is our rehearsal for our gathering out of here. This is how we rehearse, with a sense of urgency, with a sense of I'm ready to get on up out of here. Okay, and you shall let nothing of this lamb remain until morning. All of it should be taken care of, should be eaten, and that which is not eaten should be burned with fire. And you eat it with your belt on your waist, with your sandals on your feet, with your staff in your hand, and you eat in haste, because it is Yahuwah's Passover. On the first night of the Passover, the death angel was in the land, and so the blood on the doorposts of the houses gave signal to the death angel to pass by that house, to pass over that house. And so because Messiah is our Passover lamb, when the death angel is in the land, Messiah's blood on the doorpost of our heart is a signal to pass over us. The death angel passes over us, and we are brought from death into life and to the glorious liberty of sons and daughters of the Most High Yahuwah. So continuing on. For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt will I execute judgment. I am Yahuwah. Now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So this day shall be a memorial to you, and you shall keep it as a feast to Yahuwah throughout your generations. That means throughout your generations. That means it hasn't been done away with. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Yasharal. Okay, so here we're learning that this is an ordinance given by the Father. The Father has commandments, he has statutes, he has judgments, and he has ordinances. And so these are things that the Father gives to us as saying, this is what I want you to do. You are citizens of the nation of Yasharal. These are your obligations as citizens, and these are the things that you're to do. This is one of them, keeping the Passover, keeping the Feast of Unleavened Bread. As a matter of fact, this is one of the feasts that all males are required to report to Jerusalem every year in order to keep this feast, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so really, Passover is one day But the Feast of Unleavened Bread is 7 days, and then you have first fruits. So this ends up being an 8-day feast or festival. So the first day, you kill the Passover lamb. But before that, you're to get all of the leaven out of your house. There's to be no leaven in your house. You're supposed to go and search for all of the leaven. Let's say you're keeping a sourdough starter or something like that in your refrigerator. All of that has to go. All of your yeast packets and things like that has to be gotten rid of. Now, pray and ask the Father for allowances for that, because I know that many of us are trying to store up and put away supplies for hard times or end times, and then we may have things put away that we may not know of, or things put away that it may be difficult to get to because we're stocking up. So pray and ask the Father for grace for those things. I know that's what I'm doing. So pray and ask for grace for those things regarding gathering those types of yeast out of your house. So just consult the Father about that. But typically you would gather all of the yeast out of your house and you would get rid of it, get it out of your house. And whoever would eat leaven from the first day until the 7th day, it says that person shall be cut off, because yeast in this instance represents sin. And so you're to get all of the sin out of your house. So you're to search yourself, search your heart, and to make sure that you're coming before the Father with a pure heart. So we do this during the time of Passover, and we do this just in general, coming before the Father in a constant state of repentance, especially now that we're in the land of captivity, where we are depending on the Father to show mercy and remember his covenant with us. So we have to show good faith and do the things that are pleasing in his sight. So continuing on the first day, there shall be a holy convocation. On the 7th day, there shall be a holy convocation for you. No manner of work shall be done on them. So these are like Shabbat days, days in which you rest and no working. But that which everyone must eat. So you're only allowed to prepare what you need just for your daily living. You got to eat. You got to do that. But menial labor, hard labor, you're not to engage in for the 7-8 days of Passover and first fruits. So just what you need to do in order to prepare food for yourself so that you can eat for those 7 days. So shall you observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For the same day I will have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as an everlasting ordinance. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even. For 7 days no leaven shall be found in your houses, since whoever eats what is leavened, that same person shall be cut off from the congregation of Yasharal, whether he is a stranger or a native of the land. So if you're a Gentile or a stranger living amongst, and you eat leaven during this time period, you get cut off from the land. You shall not eat any leavened bread in all your dwellings, and you shall not eat leavened bread for 7 days, for the 7 days of the unleavened bread festival, which begins at even on Passover and runs through 7 days until it ends on the 8th day. So we're going to skip down to verse 25. And it shall come to pass, when you come to the land which Yahuwah will give you, just as he promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall be when your children shall say to you, what do you mean by this service? That ye shall say, it is the Passover sacrifice of Yahuwah, who passed over the houses of the children of Yasharal in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians and delivered our households. So the people bowed their heads and worshipped. Then the children of Yasharal went their way and did so, just as Yahuwah had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. So this is to be done for a memorial. And the Father is saying here, when you are into the land and you're living in the houses that you've built and you're living your life and you're just going on about the things that you're enjoying doing and you're keeping this feast, and your children say, why are we doing this? What is this for? You can answer them and say, this is Yahuwah's Passover, and this is to commemorate when the Most High brought us out of the land of Egypt and brought us into the land of promise. And here we find ourselves in another land of Egypt, waiting to be brought out. So celebrating the Passover is rehearsal for getting out of here. We're rehearsing as we keep this feast. We're remembering the things our ancestors went through when they were keeping the feast for the first time. And we remember that Yahusha is our Passover Lamb. We're remembering that he is the fulfillment of this promise. He is the fulfillment of this feast. We keep this feast in memorial to what we went through and what our ancestors went through. But we understand that spiritually speaking, the feast has been fulfilled in Messiah. That Messiah was killed on the 14th of Nisan. Messiah perfectly fulfilled the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Feast of FirstFruits perfectly. He was that wave offering before the Most High on the Feast of FirstFruits. He is the unleavened bread, that bread that came down from heaven that is pure and sinless. And when we eat and partake of this bread, we then have life within ourselves. We understand that the blood of the Lamb is his blood that washes us from our sins. We understand that as we eat his flesh and drink his blood, we become one with him. And we understand that we become a partaker of his holiness and of his righteousness. So this is why we keep the feast. We keep the feast to remember as a memorial. We keep the feast in obedience. And we keep the feast as we honor our King and our Master, Yahusha, recognizing that he is our Passover Lamb. So, how to keep the feast? For 7 days, there's to be the eating of no bread that has leaven in it, or any products that are leavened. Anything that's yeasted in any way. For 7 days, you avoid those things. And if possible, based on your permission from the Most High to allow those things to remain in your house, typically you would get them out of the house. And it's difficult to go through the things that we've stored for future hard times and try to get rid of things that may have yeast in them. So I'm sure that the Father will give us grace considering the times that we're in, and also considering that he is giving us indications that we should be storing up some supplies for hard times. So you consult the Father about that. I just wanted you to bear this in mind, that as I talk about how to keep the Feast of Passover from a purely memorial and physical standpoint, meaning keeping it in the flesh, I want you to understand that there's a spiritual component to keeping Passover. And some may decide to keep it from a mere memorial perspective by just doing what's written in the text and then following out the instructions given to us. And some may decide to keep it from a purely spiritual standpoint and not keep it from a mere memorial standpoint. Or some may decide to do both. Obviously, both is probably preferred if you had to choose. But I wanted to note that in the process of clearing yeast out of your house, some of you may decide to do that, some of you may not. But at the very least, we should perform the spiritual aspect of clearing the yeast out of our house, which is during this time of the 7 days, allowing the Ruach to really go in and clean house, showing you things, showing you secret sins and motives of your heart that may not be pure before the Most High, to allow it to be a time of introspection, where you look within your house, we are the temple of the Most High, and determine what areas of your life are pleasing to the Father, or maybe not so much, or things that you need to change, or things that you need to do differently. It's a time for some springtime house cleaning, where you open up the windows and you throw open the doors and you let the breath of the Ruach come in and clean away the dust and the cobwebs and the sins that so easily beset us, so that we can be clean and pure before the Most High, as he is in the process of choosing those whom he will gather home. Of course, we know that the whole idea of the Passover is allowing the blood of the Lamb to be applied to the doorpost. So we are cleaned and declared righteous before the Most High because of and due to the blood of the Lamb. But there are those of us who have not allowed the blood to be applied to all of the areas of our hearts. It needs to fully penetrate all of our areas. And so this is a time to be introspective about such things during the time of Passover. So you choose one of the dates that I presented earlier in the video, or you may have your own dates from another assembly that you attend, and then you celebrate the Passover. You begin the Feast of Unleavened Bread with Passover that at night, at even, when you don't have to kill the Passover because the Passover has already been sacrificed for us. But you get your lamb. You can choose the cut of lamb that you desire, and you cook it with fire with bitter herbs. You can use things such as, you can use arugula or bitter lettuces or any kind of, or dandelion greens, anything like that that's a bitter green or a bitter herb. You can choose to go with your lamb, roast it with fire with your bitter herbs, and then add some unleavened bread. You can purchase it from the store, or you can make it without the leaven. It's going to look more cracker-like without leaven because it won't be risen. And then as you do that, you eat and you remember. I'm sure you can Google a recipe for unleavened bread. But as you eat, you remember. And you remember the night that our ancestors were told to eat in haste and to prepare themselves to leave. Because remember, as they were doing this, the death angel was coming through the land and it was killing the firstborn of all the Egyptians. And so there was much carnage going on around them as they ate this meal and ate this Passover. And they were preparing to go. And after this night, Pharaoh came in and said, go. Take your sheep, take your lamb, take your goats, take your people, and go. And so this is a memorial for us, and it's one that it's important to practice. So I pray that you'll consider keeping the feast if you haven't done so. And if you have any further questions, I pray you'll put them in the chat or just ask the questions that you may have, and we can discuss how you can better prepare yourself to prepare yourself. We're preparing ourselves to go. We're preparing ourselves to leave this place, to leave Babylon. We're preparing ourselves to depart and go hence. So this is our practice. So thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining me once again on the channel. Thank you for watching this video, and I thank you for your time and your consideration. I pray the Most High bless and keep you. I pray that He would make His face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. I pray that He would lift up His countenance upon you and grant you peace, and more peace. Amen and amen.